A very pleasant good afternoon to all of our friends joining us. We are grateful for the opportunity to come your way again another Sabbath afternoon with another edition of Let's Talk. This afternoon, we are going to be discussing the topic of GMOs. What are they really and how do they impact us? Should we be concerned about humans changing the genetic structure of plants and animals? When I walk into a supermarket and purchase a tomato, can I be sure that I'm really buying a tomato? Additionally, what is the benefit of GMOs to humanity? We have a very special guest this afternoon to answer all of our questions. But before we introduce our guest, we'd like to invite you, our viewers, to have a word of prayer with us. Almighty Father and our God, we thank you for the privilege of sharing and ask that you will be with us as we go into this afternoon's program. Guide us, take full control. In Jesus' name, amen. Our guest this afternoon on Let's Talk is Dr. Patrick Ogutu. He is an elder at the Leeds Central Seventh-day Adventist Church in the United Kingdom. He's married to Emily Tibbs Ogutu. I trust I'm calling names correctly. He has a background in agricultural science. He graduated from the Andrews University with a Bachelor's of Science degree in agriculture, then from the Reading University in the United Kingdom with a Master of Science in soil chemistry and soil fertility, and a PhD from the Michigan State University in soil fertility and plant nutrition. He has served as a lecturer and chair of the Department of Agriculture at the University of Eastern Africa and Baraton for 25 years and currently works in the United Kingdom. We are so delighted, Dr. Ogutu, to have you with us this Sabbath afternoon. I believe it may be night in the United Kingdom. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. It's about 2:14 here in the UK, and I'm happy to be with you. The topic we are going to discuss today is GMOs and how it affects us. Let me just open my PowerPoint presentation here to make it easy for me to move on. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Yes, Doc, we're delighted to have you, and glad that you could join us. We are talking about GMOs. Can you begin by explaining what GMOs are so that our viewers can get a sense of what we're talking about this afternoon?
Okay. Sorry, just getting my slides out of the.
That's all right.
All right. Thank you very much. Genetically modified or genetically engineered organisms, GMO, is a big word, big topic that people have looked at, and it's brought a lot of heat in our discussions and presentations around tables. We define GMO or genetically modified organisms as organisms, that is plants, animals, or microorganisms in which the genetic material, the DNA, has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating and or natural recombination. And this has brought a lot of heat, a lot of discussion. People have been very emotional, and sometimes the scientific background is not understood or confused quite a bit. And we ask ourselves, what is the purpose of genetic modification? The purpose of genetic crops generally include development of resistance to certain pests, resistance to diseases or environmental conditions, or resistance to chemical treatments, such as resistance to herbicides. Other purposes of genetic modification of crops is to enhance its nutritional value, as seen in the case of the golden rice. we'll
So,
ask
so,
ourselves. Yes,
so,
go
so
ahead.
Doc, are we saying that the whole concept behind genetically modified foods is so that we can have increased food security for mankind?
That's the general idea. The general idea is that we can be able to produce foods in a cheaper way so that farmers' input can be minimized. But like we said, there are hidden agendas behind it all. When people develop, like for example, Monsanto developing seeds for particular crops, they put in them a gene where a farmer can be able to plant it once and not replant it again. That has brought a lot of heat because so many of our farmers are able to currently be able to harvest some of their crop, pick the very best, keep it and plant it for the following year. So when you can't be able to do that, that defeats the purpose of doing it in the first place.
Well, yeah, because I observed in my own backyard garden that, you know, there was a time when I would plant corn and I keep the best of it and I replant it. But I noticed that if I purchase a package with beans from the supermarket and I plant a few of them, even when they grow, that the yield is not anything worthwhile. And I was wondering what's going on. So you're saying that they intentionally program the seeds, so to speak, the plants, so that when I purchase the GMO seeds, they produce once, and that's it.
They produce once, or the hybrid that they have, we have a term referred to as hybrid vigor, so that when you have hybrids, every time you replant them, you have less and less and less production. So basically, you're supposed to go back to the original seeds that you started with. And that becomes a challenge to farmers who are used to actually picking the best seeds they have in their field and regrowing it again.
Well, Doc, even before we get into the ethical dimension of that, because that's interesting. It sounds to me as though that is a specific idea there for me to keep going and purchasing more seeds.
Yes.
But before we talk about that, a little bit more about GMOs. When you say that they modify the genes in the plants for better yield or for altered reproduction, can you, for the person who is listening, who is not of a scientific background,
yes,
just explain a little bit more about how one is able to go and modify the gene in a particular plant for the benefit may not have a science background.
Yes, I think it's not working very well, but it's all right. For somebody who doesn't have a science background, from time immemorial, farmers have always tried to improve the yield of their crops. And what do? They look at the best growing crops in the field. The ones, let's say, for example, corn. You look at the corn that has got the largest ears. You'll find one stem that probably has 3 cobs, heavy ones. You want that kind of quality. So you pick that kind of crop, and that's what you cross with another crop. One of the challenges, for example, in plant breeding we have is you have a crop that is high yielding like that, but the problem is going to be very tall. And as it grows in the field, you have a very heavy weight on it. They tend to fall on the side. So it becomes difficult to be able to hold it or keep it growing in the field. So in plant breeding, we want to breed a crop that will have a strong stem, that will be able to carry a lot of weight and keep the yield growing. So farmers have done this for themselves, and companies have come out that can be able to do this kind of production, keep production going, and eventually keep the yields high. So they try to do that and keep the system going. You'll find a crop like beans people don't want to do because farmers can replant the beans over and over and over. Because of the strong cover that beans has, beans can be able to stay viable for 5 to 10 years easily. Whereas some of the other crops, viability starts going down really fast. So yes, farmers have been able to do it. Individual people have done it, but things have improved in such a way that now it's being done by different organizations, different companies. so that we can be able to get that yields and to be able to keep up with the quantities that are required. It's really a good idea to have organizations or companies that are doing it to bring that kind of results. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So Doc, I know you wanted to show some slides,
Yes.
perhaps to help our viewers along. You are free to share your slides whenever you wish. In the meantime, let me just ask another question. The idea that somebody is interfering with the genetic structure of the food that I'm eating may sound a little scary to some people.
Yes.
Should that be a concern to me, to somebody else? Is it okay for people to interfere with the genetic structure of the foods? Can there be side effects, for example?
Currently, really, there's a lot of talk when people talk about side effects and all that. But when people do research, you'll find that maybe one or two or a small group of people coming out and saying that there might be a link between this disease and eating this and that crop. Really, it's not something that we should be concerned much about at the moment. No, we shouldn't be worried about that. The idea is not to infect people or make people suffer from eating a certain kind of food. We'll get more issues with, say, for example, people eating foods that have got too much oil. Like, for example, when you have children eating a lot of takeaway foods, fish and chips, very big here in the UK, you end up with issues of obesity and other health issues that come along with it. That would be more of a concern than the foods that we are talking about. And GMOs really are big in the United States of America. Many other parts of the world is still picking up, not as much as you see in the US.
So what, apart from the concern with the having to purchase the seeds annually,
yes,
what else should I be concerned about as an individual who, because I hear a lot of talk about GMOs. I hear farmers, for example, saying, and maybe we should talk about this a little bit, because take the idea of cross fertilization or pollination.
Yes.
If I have a crop as a farmer planted in a particular space, and my next door neighbor or farmer has crops that are genetically modified, is there a challenge that the wind can blow pollen from his crops to my crops and interfere with the yield of my crops?
That is a possibility. Normally, when you have people growing the same kind of crops neighboring one another, pollination will take place. Pollination will take place, and yes, the results might be closer to what you're having because they are crossing. For example, when we are doing plant breeding, and say we are doing plant breeding for corn, we advise farmers who are doing plant breeding that their neighbors ought to do the same kind of thing or grow the same kind of crop rather than growing something different, because yes, there'll be interference from your neighbors.
Okay, so that interference can be bad or good?
Since the crops that have been generally sold for GMO are not meant to be for you to do the breeding, it might have a negative effects, although I haven't seen any studies to show that yet. Okay, if you think in my mind, that might be a possibility, but it really hasn't happened, or we haven't seen any results like that yet, really.
Now I read somewhere, and I don't know how whether or not this is true, because there are lots of people who say lots of things about GMOs.
Yes.
Now, I read somewhere that they take genes from the pig and put it in the tomato plant to make the tomato firmer or more durable. When we do genetic modification of foods, are the genes coming from other plants? Are they coming from animals, or are they manufactured genes? Can you tell us a little bit about the process and how it works?
Okay, let me just pick my slide here for really we don't use animals into plant genes. It doesn't happen. It's plants being improved by themselves. No. If you hear stories of people saying, oh, it's because of animals being put in plants, that's not there. No. That's just people talking.
Okay,
unfortunately.
That's comforting to hear.
Yes. Okay. Let me mention some benefits of GMOs to humankind, okay?
Okay.
Some of the benefits of genetic engineering in agriculture are increased crop yields, reduced cost of food and drug production. I'm getting help from somewhere here, thank you. Enhanced nutrient composition and food quality, and resistance to pests and diseases, and greater food security and medical benefits to the world's growing population. Those are some of the big benefits that we see from GMO. Okay, and as we are talking here, I like to mention, okay, I'm told that to be able to see my slides, you have to allow me to share my screen.
You have permission to share.
Okay, my wife is trying to help me here.
That's all right. Good evening to Sister Ogutu. Did I call your name correctly, by the way?
Yes, you did.
Okay. That's all right.
Yes, that's okay.
All right. Well, you know, Doc, I mean, every now and then I do have some challenges sharing, etc., and I do need some assistance sometimes. So that's quite okay. You can take a minute and get it up and going for the benefit of our viewers, because we want to get the full import of what you're sharing with us.
Okay. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, I am. Wonderful.
Okay. Oh, just like this. I'll be able to continue. Thank you. I've been helped. It's nice to have people who can help you along.
That's correct. That is so true.
She does more of that now than I do. She still teaches at the university here.
Okay.
All right. That's good. Thank you. We mentioned some of the benefits to humankind.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The big question that is being asked here: are GMOs safe to consume? And what I have here is there is no data to indicate that consumption of GMOs is bad for human health. In addition, over the two decades or so that GMOs have been on the market, there have been no occurrence of health issues due to genetically modified organisms. As GMOs stand today, there are no health benefits to eating them over non-GMO foods. Okay.
So I can from your perspective, and you are an expert in this area, from your perspective, I mean, you have done a lot of work in soil chemistry and that kind of thing. Yes. You are saying that I should not have any undue concern over the alteration of the genes in these foods.
Not really. What we do, for example, when we're talking about we'll see that as we continue in the presentation, that most of the genetically modified foods we see in the US are used for feeding livestock and feeding poultry. Okay, the corn that's being used, and really there are no particular studies that have been made to show a negative effect on people. Okay, if you have a problem with food, you probably is eating too much of the wrong kind, like I just mentioned earlier on, oils, and I've had friends who've had heart conditions, and some of them have been advised just cut down the amount of oil you're eating, and you see wonders. It may take 6 months or a year, and after that they're healthy and their lifestyle changes. So it's really lifestyle that you'll use to manage your life in the best possible way. But we're in this world, we cannot be able to hide away from everything that's happening around us.
I'm following you. Yes. So you deal with agriculture, with plant fertility, I mean soil fertility, etc. Do you also deal with the animal aspect of agriculture, like chicken and that kind of thing?
Yes, my background was I taught at the Adventist University in Kenya. That's the University of Eastern Africa, Baraton. And for a while, I was the farm manager, university farm manager. Yes, I did take care of cows and the chicken. I worked with them, prepared the feeds, what they're eating, and all the total welfare, production of eggs, milk production, and all that. Now, what's your question?
So since we're talking about food security,
Yes.
people also have significant concerns over the hormones that are supposedly injected in some of these animals, chicken, for example. I don't eat chicken, but you know, I do know that some of these things grow from infants to time for slaughter in a very short period of time. Is that a concern, and are there any health implications in that?
That might be a concern, okay, but that's not GMO. There might be a concern to what inputs are going into the production of the feed. I don't eat poultry. I try to stay away from that. I don't eat meat at all. So, advice would be to go back to the original diet that we had, which was really plant-based. That's what I advise anybody who goes in that direction. And if you go to places like Africa, many people do not like to eat the chicken that grow in 4 weeks time. 1 month time is ready. Okay. They'd rather consume free range chicken that eat everything all around. They eat the grass, they eat insects, they eat everything, and you feed them extra food on the side. Okay. Let me put a slide here. Question is, what is GMO chicken? Okay. A number of factors go into raising larger, healthier birds than ever before. But genetically modifying chickens to be larger isn't one of them. There are no GMO chickens commercially available, period. In fact, there are not currently any genetically modified animals commercially available.
Okay, so there are none commercially available, but the technology does exist to do that. Is that correct?
The technology, yes, is there, but no nation, USDA, Food, Drug and Drug Administration has not passed things like that. So nobody's doing it, because that's usually where big things start and they spread elsewhere. Like GMOs, food, they've tried to spread in so many different parts of the world. Like places like Japan will not touch it. If you say it's genetically produced, say wheat, they don't want it. Rice, they will not touch it.
Okay, so here's my question. Now, on the one hand, you did indicate that from the research that is available currently, yes, there is nothing to show that there are harmful effects on human beings. Yet there are some nations that say we don't want it. Why are they saying they don't want it?
The reason is when people carry out their studies, we will make different conclusions. 2, 3, 4 different people will look at particular data and they pick what they want to pick out, and that's what they share. Okay? There's a lot of emotional involvement in some of these comments. And if you look at some of the people who are commenting, really, they don't have the background to be able to justify the conclusions they're making.
That's interesting, Doc. If I heard you correctly, you're saying that when research is done, it can be interpreted differently to suit different markets, different persons.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Now that's interesting, because there was a theory that I had that sometimes people, the sponsors of certain research would want the research to say something to support their product.
Yes.
But going back to places like Japan saying they don't want to harbor genetically modified foods. When I hear a nation saying we don't want this, I get concerned. I get concerned over the safety of the thing. Although one nation may be saying it's safe, another one is saying I don't want it. How do I make a determination? How do I know who to trust with this?
The best way to be able to know what to do is actually yourself. You ask from the specialists, from the people who've studied the area, find out what is going on, what's the truth, where do we belong? Is this the right way to go? Is this what we should eat or what we should not eat? Talk to the health personnel, talk to nutritionists, talk to agriculturists, talk to farmers, and they tell you, this is our experience. This is what we found out. But generally, when we look at crops, we have been improving them over the years. We want higher yields. We want better looking crops. We want better tasting crops. That's not genetic, that's really genetic modification, really. Okay, but it's not what people are looking at now and saying, hey, they probably put some other genes into it. No, the main thing that we've done in agriculture is just select better crops and cross them with one another, so we get superior things that some.
So on the one level, we are talking about crossbreeding.
Yes.
If I hear you correctly.
Yes.
Lots of experimentation with crossbreeding so that you can get a strain that is perhaps resistant to some form of disease or another.
Yeah.
Do they also alter the genes? Let me see how I can ask this question so that our viewers can follow. Mm-hmm. I do understand the concept of experimentation with different varieties of crops, crossbreeding until you get a crop that is resistant to, let's say, drought or a particular disease.
Yes.
But is there also the altering of the genes? So, for example, I know in science we now can map the genes for certain individuals, organisms, etc. So if scientists are able to identify a particular gene in a plant that is causing an issue with lack of production, can they alter that gene or substitute it with another gene in a similar plant to produce higher yields? And if so, how comfortable should we be with scientists interfering with the genetic structure of things that God made?
Actually, in GMO, we are not, the goal is not to try to improve the yield as such. The yield is done by plant breeders and animal breeders. We pick the best of the crop, the best of the animals, and we cross them. So that, for example, you are a dairy farmer. You want cows that are going to be able to give you more milk. So I use sperms from a bull that the parental genetic makeup gives me higher milk production. Say, for example, I need animals that will be giving me 50 liters of milk a day rather than 10 liters of milk a day. So I breed towards that. When I start very little, probably start with 10 liters a day and move on to 15, 20, 30, 40, 50. So the goal is to get to that high level. That's just plain simple farming and breeding program. And we do the same with crops. We look at a crop that will give us that have the right traits for a particular adaptation, particular region, and we keep improving them year in, year out, year in, year out, and eventually release them to farmers. That's what farming is all about. But in terms of GMOs giving us high yields, that's not the story. Basically, what I gave for GMOs was resistance to pests and insects and weeds. Okay, those are big things that we do. But in terms of increasing food production, we get very high yields with organic matter, organically produced crops. All you need to do is give it the right environment in the soil, give it the moisture, give it the air that it needs and the nutrients that are needed in balance, and you got your production moving.
Let me, there are a few questions that our viewers are asking, but I want you to clarify something for me personally.
Yes.
You just use a term there, organically produced crops, you said?
Yes.
So organically produced crops, that is altering the soil chemistry. You're talking about fertilizing the plants, the soil.
Yes. Sorry, finish your question.
Yeah, so you're talking about adding substances to the soil as opposed to interfering with the structure of the plant.
Right. Organic production simply means we add organic matter, plant residues that have been broken down to release the nutrients that were held in plants, so crops can be able to take it in and enhance their production. And on top of that, improve the soil in such a way that air and water can be able to flow easily into the soil and crops can be able to grow. And also roots of the plant can be able to penetrate and reach nutrients farther away from where they are. So we end up with much higher yields than we would have done if we didn't have organic matter. Okay. And actually, people are paying premium price for organically produced food, most parts of the world now.
Okay, I'm going to want to ask you a few questions on that, but let's take a few questions from some of our viewers. This question: any way of recognizing which product is GMO? So,
okay, good.
Can I, if I walk in the supermarket, is there a way of knowing that this is genetically modified as opposed to one that is not?
There are numbers that are on them. There's a number 4110. If it is genetically modified, one of them would start with 8, another one would start with 9. If it is genetically modified, I think starts with 8, and then 9 is the other way around. Maybe I might be confused them a little bit, but that's a number you can be able to tell. But also on the supermarket, on the shelf, they'll tell you if you're buying organically produced food or not. Okay, but really the ideal situation that we are told as Adventists will be to grow our own food. I enjoy doing an allotment here in the UK. You go and apply for a piece of land and be able to grow your various crops. It's just amazing how much you can get, the kind of yield you can get in a small area. So suppose we had bigger piece of land like we have in places like Antigua or Africa or other places. You can be able to produce all the food that you need for your crops. Okay.
We're going to come back to that in a while, because, you know, in this COVID era that we live in, there is certainly the need for people to augment their food supply by growing their own foods. But before we get to that, another question: is the nutritional value of the food affected when it is genetically modified?
The nutritional quality of the food is not affected at all. There are situations where in plant breeding, we try to improve the quality or the nutritional value of a crop. For example, crops like sweet potatoes. Earlier on, we used to produce a lot of white flesh sweet potatoes, but breeding has gone to a level where we have orange colored sweet potatoes, meaning they have more carotene in it, better nutrition. So yes, we can be able to do that, but is not as a result of GMOs. No, it's as a result of plant breeding.
Okay, another question. Are the seedless fruits genetically modified? And if not, how do we get them?
When we, I'm getting help here that the numbers in the supermarket, the ones that start with the number 8 is GMO, and the 9 ones are not. Thank you very much. Somebody just put a message across. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Where do we see these numbers? Because
I think in the chat, the bottom of your chat, somebody just help me clear it up.
In the bottom of the label
chat.
On the plant, on the food?
Yes, on the label of the plant, yes, they'll indicate that.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's, the question, Doc, is seedless fruits.
Yes, okay. That's a very interesting question to ask, okay? I'll give an example of bananas. Bananas are seedless. If you have a ripe banana and you cut right in the middle, you're going to see small little dots, okay?
Yes.
Basically a seed of bananas. But over the years, we have crossed domesticated banana with the wild bananas. It's Musa, they call the plant, different varieties, and we have different varieties growing in one place and another, to a point where bananas today are the most popular fruits the world over. Everywhere you go, you'll find bananas. You can't miss it on the shelf. It's so common, so popular, so cheap that people can get it most everywhere. Okay, farmers, individual human beings, have done breeding over and over and over the years. Now what we do with bananas and pineapples in places like Kenya, where I originally come from, we do tissue culture. Tissue culture, where you start with just a small tissue of a banana, and from that tissue we can get thousands of seedlings, plantlets, and grow them into big plants that can grow at the same time, harvest the same yield, big, nice looking fruits. So
could you explain a little more of that?
Tissue culture is a system that has been used a lot in flower production, but now we've gone into using it in crops such as bananas, pineapples, and others, where we start with just a single cell from the center part, the tender center part of the shoot, from around the root of a plant, and we cut them growing in a culture, different nutrients, to a point where we start having what we refer to as plantlets, small little plants, and we have thousands from a little petri dish. So from there, we can be able to spread them, and farmers are enjoying growing them in different parts of the world now. So places where the production was very low, farmers are going into producing large acreage, 5, 10, 20, 100 acres of bananas, and they can sell it all over.
Well, pardon my ignorance here, Doc, but when I asked you about seedless fruits just now, you used bananas as an example, and you did indicate that when I look in the center of the banana, that I can see something that resembles very small seeds.
They are seeds, but you can't. They're not viable. You can't be able to take them to go and plant them.
Okay, so how do you crossbreed the banana plant if there are no seeds?
Crossbreeding. Basically, we don't do crossbreeding. We just pick the different varieties of bananas we have in different parts of the world that have developed over the years, over the centuries, and then this is something that has been going on for very long. It's not new, really, and people have used it, and they're still using it even more. And as somebody commented that God made everything with seeds. Yes, that's true. They have seeds, but viability of some of the seeds is no longer there in some of the crops because of the conditions where we place them. Not everything is perfect like it was in the Garden of Eden. Things have changed a lot over the years. Some of them, we can only grow them by cutting materials, replant elsewhere, and so on. Okay.
Okay, that's rather very interesting. Um, I well, let me just ask another question here. Um, this is a question from one of our viewers. How can we be certain that as man continues to use technology to alter organisms to increase food supply, that the safety of our foods will not become seriously compromised?
The safety of food, there is protection. No government wants its people to die from eating bad food as such. So if before a seed or a variety of crop comes out to be available commercial to people, it goes through so many levels of testing, different countries, different regions, different nations, and no country ever takes it lightly what the people are going to eat. So by the time, say for example, a crop of corn comes out to be consumed out in the field, it's probably taken studies of 5, 6, 7, 10 years before it's available to people. So it's not as easy as it might seem. It goes through lots of stages, through lots of committees, through lots of multi-agency research before we can say, yes, this is good, this is clean, this is kosher. It can go to the community. It can go to the farmers to be able to grow.
Okay. Let's for a moment go back to the idea. I mean, this may be not quite genetically modified, but it is still food security.
Yes.
The issue of, let's say I have a piece of land in my backyard.
Yes.
And it is where I live, the soil is limestone, which means yes, that it is not a very fertile soil. But then I do understand that if I go to the farming depot and I buy some fertilizers and I put it in the soil, that I can get good yield. Are those fertilizers safe? Do they have any impact on me? What do you say as somebody who is versed in the area of agriculture?
Fertilizers are safe. They are simply nutrients that have been balanced out to show you what quantities are needed. In the field of agriculture, we recommend that before you use fertilizers, your soil is tested to tell you what quantities or nutrients are in the soil, and plants can be able to take advantage of them. So all we need to do is top it up so plants can be able to get sufficient nutrients out of it. Using organic matter, there's no side effect, there's no negative thing. But some of the other minerals you're using might have binders or materials that are used to hold them together that might have some side effects that might not be as good as what you'd expect if you had organic matter. Organic matter is straight from plant material or from animal material, composted, broken down so it's in a form that plants can be able to take it in. That's why.
How do I know that the fertilizer that I'm purchasing is from organic matter as opposed to something that is manufactured in the lab?
If you just read the instructions, when we sell fertilizers, we always say who manufactured it, what the contents are, where it came from, and what it can be used for. Always. There must be some label on it. That's a requirement all over the world.
All right, let's go back to a few questions from our viewers here. Here's a question asking, what of Cornish hens?
Our Cornish hens, those are smaller sized hens. There are different breeds of hens, of chicken that you can be able to grow. They're smaller in size, and some people keep them for eating, others keep them just for beauty and just enjoy them as pets as such. People who keep poultry for feeding, for production of eggs, tend to keep bigger ones than that. Okay, Cornish are smaller in size.
Is it mandatory for GMO foods to be labeled?
Not generally. Not. It depends on which country you are. they'll not indicate. You have to ask, okay? But the numbers that we saw earlier on in certain places will show you that, yes, this is GMO food and all that. But before we answer that question, it might be a good idea for us to know what common GMO crops we deal with, really. Okay.
Okay, sure.
I did make a list of common crops that we have that are GMO crops. The first one I'll mention is Bacillus thuringiensis corn, or BT corn. This produces toxics to certain insect pests, but not to human or pets or livestock or other animals. BT corn goes into processed food and drinks. It is mostly used for feed and livestock industry, poultry industry. You'll notice that many of the things we were producing here are used for livestock and poultry industry, because poultry and livestock eat the same food that human beings eat. So many of the production, that there's competition between human beings and these animals. So a challenge comes in. So that's one of the reasons why we go into this production. Okay, the next item that I put on my list here is soybeans. Soybeans, again, is used to feed animals and poultry and making soybean oil, and is also used as ingredients in processed foods, including lecithin, emulsifiers, and proteins. And next on my list.
If I may interrupt you, Doc, before you go on a little further, because
yes,
I know that for vegetarians like myself,
yes,
we tend to use a lot of soy-based products.
Yes.
So is it likely that most of the soy products that I am getting in my alternative foods, plant-based foods, tofu and those kinds of things, that those soybeans are genetically modified?
If it is produced in the US, it's likely from GMO, but if it's from other parts of the world, it's not. If, say, it's from the Philippines or from Japan or some Far Eastern countries, then it's not.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, another common GMO crop that we see is cotton. Cotton that was developed to be resistant to bollworms, which was not allowing the cotton to grow, the flower to grow properly. It provides reliable source of cotton for the textile industry. And places where the cotton industry was basically falling apart because of GMO produced cotton, BT cotton, they can now be able to keep the textile industry going. And then the cotton seed oil is used in packaged food again, and restaurants for frying. There goes your fish and chips. That's big time here in the UK. Another crop that is a common GMO crop is potatoes, developed to resist insects and pests, and also developed to resist bruising, browning that occurs when potatoes are packaged, stored, and transported, or even cut in the kitchen. Okay, so some of this.
Doc, pardon me for going this over again, but
no problem.
I have a lot of interest in this, and I'm wondering, you're saying that the process of modifying these plants is really by experimentation, crossbreeding, and eventually selecting the one that is resistant? In
GMOs, they'll inject some genetic materials in it, but pure plant breeding, we just cross them. We just cross and pick the best and move on.
So how do we know when it is being injected with the genetic material as opposed to when it's just pure crossbreeding?
Generally, if you're buying things in the US, you would probably be buying genetically modified crops, because they're really big on that. Other countries now are opening up a little bit to genetically modified crops. It's been introduced through many African countries, many other European countries are picking it up, but for a long time there was resistance. But this resistance is being broken down slowly by slowly. They're accepting. As challenges come about, they probably are pushed and accepting to do studies on GMOs in their countries. And if they see the results are acceptable, they go ahead and do it and introduce it to their people.
Okay, very well. When you complete the list, we do have a few questions from our viewers that we would want to address in our final 10 minutes.
Okay, let me pick another set of crops that have genetically been improved or modified. We have papaya that has been improved to resist ring spot virus. We have summer squash. We have canola, which is a crop that was developed in Canada, used to make cooking oil and margarine. Canola seed is used in animal feed, and the oil is used in packaged food to improve food consistency. And then we have alfalfa, used for feeding cattle, and developed to be resistant to herbicides.
There's a big debate about canola.
Yes.
And whether or not it's a safe food, if the plant itself was not created, so to speak. I don't know if at all you have any information on that, because this is a big topic. Lots of people, I know canola oil is a very popular product these days, but there is a significant debate concerning its usefulness, whereas some claim that it is low in fats, in certain trans fats. Others are claiming that it is a manufactured plant and we should stay away from it. I don't know if you do have any information on that and you want to say a word on it.
The general idea on canola oil is that it's low in saturated fat and that it's got a high proportion of monosaturated fat. So nutritionally, it says this makes it a healthy and safe choice when it comes to cooking oils. But if you have a choice of using olive oil, that's even better. But not everybody has a chance to get to do that.
Okay, very well.
Okay. So we mentioned alfalfa, and then one more item, set of items. Oh, apples have also been developed through GMO to resist browning after being cut. There's some apples that you every time you cut them open, it'll brown very quickly. Then also sugar beets. Sugar beets are used to make granulated sugar, very common in the US and other parts of the world. GMO sugar beets are resistant to herbicides and help farmers to control weeds in the field. When they use herbicide-resistant crops, the idea is they can easily minimize weeds in the field, so it costs less for farmers to produce. And what farmers really want in the long run is to be able to put more money in their pockets and get high yields. That's why you've seen it becoming popular among some farmers.
So well, let me resist that and ask. Somebody's asking here, what is the difference between organic and GMO foods? Like chicken, they are plants that mature in 1 month. Are they really healthy?
Plants that mature in one month. What kind of plants are we talking about?
I am not sure. That's what a listener is asking. I suppose I know that there are chickens that mature very quickly, but the plant.
Yes, we have broiler chicken that are ready in 4 to 6 weeks easily. They've been bred to be able to grow very quickly, and people are consuming. It's the most popular chicken people are eating all over the place. And you'll ask yourself, do I want to eat this or not? Is this the direction I want to go? And like I said, certain places people prefer to have their chicken that have grown a little bit longer, or go for free range animals that take a little bit longer and consume more balanced food than the ones that are factory manufactured or produced, so to speak. In the big poultry farms, the actual big factories, you have what they call all in, all out. You have a large number of chicken come in, maybe 2 million at once, feed them, and they're out again in a very short period of time.
Now, Doc, Another question, this is an interesting one. GMO may
Yes,
not allegedly have an adverse effect on health of consumers, but
yes.
why are they dyeing and waxing fruits and vegetables?
Um, uh, Waxing of foods, for example, fruits. It's very common with apples. They wax them to minimize the amount of moisture the crop is losing, so it can sit on the market shelf a little bit longer. Bananas, we'll harvest them in the field when they're still green and bring them to the place where we're going to sell them and expose them to ethylene gas, so they ripen and they're just the right color when we need it. So so they can be able to sell it in big time, because the demand is really big, but there is no negative effects on people consuming it because of ethylene. Fruits themselves naturally produce ethylene, but now they've produced the gas. They can be able to do it in storage and prepare it ready for the market on the day and the time that's required.
So you're saying that when I consume the waxed apples, I do not need to worry about the health effects on me?
Really, the food that we eat, chances are you're not going to eat everything perfect that you get. When you harvest crops, there'll be some chemicals still on the crop. You'll try and clean it up, a small concentration, a small percentage. For example, when you grow vegetables, we have a spraying window. If we spray our crops, say today, we will wait for 7 days before we can be able to harvest and sell them to people. But does that mean that all the chemicals that were sprayed on the crop is gone? No, a certain percentage will still be there. So yes, you'll still be able to consume some things that are not right with you. So it's not really a perfect world as such.
Now, Doc, you are, if I may describe you as a plant scientist,
Yes.
a soil scientist, perhaps.
Yes.
You have over the years, I suppose, done a lot of work in assisting farmers, teaching students how they can manage their crops well.
Yes.
You're also a Christian. You're an elder
Yes.
in your church.
Yes.
Do you see any ethical concerns with genetically modifying foods and your Christian belief in terms of God made something? There was a question here
Yes.
that was saying, can humans or scientists really alter God's basic created structure without repercussions? Do you see any ethical concerns over genetically modifying these foods?
We really do not alter them to a point where they're degraded as such.
Mm-hmm.
All we're trying to do is to grow a crop that is resistant to diseases, that is consistent in its production, that is higher yields to the farmer, so that he can be able to feed his family and also be able to make maximum profits out of his field, but not in terms of being destructive to the people. Okay. Ethically, I would not want to grow anything that will harm any human being as such. No.
We are kind of out of time. I mean, there are lots of questions, plenty. Maybe you need to come back sometime else. But here is a question that I have a concern about likewise. What are the issues of concern for the environment?
The issues of concern for the environment that comes in with this genetically modified crops, for example, is we're using a lot of herbicides, a lot of pesticides. And what happens, the pesticides will end up, when it rains, they'll be washed up into the stream systems, into the soil, into places where they can reach human beings, and also life in waters. That's where the problem would be. Okay.
So is that, are you saying that the GMOs reduce that risk or increase that risk?
They'll increase that risk.
Oh.
Yes. That's probably why people are raising their arms in the air and saying, hey, what's going on here? There is some truth in that direction. Okay. But the crop that's produced doesn't have higher nutrition than genetically produced food. No.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, our time is up. We want to thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if there is a burden, something you didn't say that you would want to share with us. We do have lots of other questions, but we will be in touch and perhaps arrange another time when we can address some of the other issues. But your final words?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with friends and colleagues all over the place that food is produced to be able to serve human beings, so we can all eat healthily. Nobody wants to destroy anybody. Our goal in agriculture is that you can eat healthy, nobody should lack, and farmers will be able to get a reasonable income out of the work that they put in without harming anybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogutu. We are delighted that you were able to share with us today. I want to remind our viewers that next week we continue Let's Talk. Next week is Creation Sabbath, October 24. We are going to be talking about theistic evolution. Is it possible to be a Christian and still believe in evolution? Then the following week, October 31, we are going to be talking about reproductive technologies. We're going to be talking about issues of fertility treatment, artificial insemination, surrogate motherhood. That may run us 2 or 3 weeks. After that, we have some interesting topics lined up. We are going to be talking towards the end of November about infidelity. And then we're going to come back with the part 2 of the very insightful discussion we had last week, legal issues affecting Christians. We want to encourage you to keep watching our 1-hour program on Sabbath afternoons, Let's Talk. Again, thank you so much for your concerns, for the questions you have been asking, and for the comments you have been making. Our desire is just to bring the issues to light and to share meaningful ways as how we can, as Christians, live in a world that is impacted by sin. And we are so grateful for all of those who have contributed over the past weeks and months. Dr. Ogutu, delighted to have you with us. God bless you, and see you sometime else on Let's Talk.
Thank you very much, and God bless.